Yeah.
What is your professor name?
You can say Janice Marcolis.
Hello, Janice Marcopolo.
Okay. My name's Ted. Today we're going to be doing some more review with that great story, Miriam. I'm sure you guys love that story.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, great. So we're going to review some basic stuff about literary analysis. Most of you guys know this stuff because I read most of your essays. And so you have this basic idea, right? The Miriam essay. But we're going to practice a little more and then do an activity at the end where I split you guys up. I'm going to give you guys like the same main idea with opposite thesis. Like one group will be good, one will be bad or sad story. And then have you guys try to find evidence and support it to show you guys kind of opposite points of view. First, let's just talk about this story. What did you guys, forget literary analysis. Did you guys like this story? Hate this story? It was interesting, it was weird. Weird? Why? Why was it weird? It was almost like a ghost story, kind of, right? It was kind of mysterious. What else? What did you feel by the end? Like, huh, interesting, or like, meow. Nah. Okay. Alan Poe was scarier. Anything else? Any other emotion? Trying to guys to get you to express your emotion. You're always like,
It's quite interesting.
No, that's just, you're lying.
When Scott proposed the question that this Miriam represents that
Okay.
idea. That's how.
That sounds a little less like lying. Still kind of.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop talking now.
Yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
Mr. Marcopolo.
Thank you. Okay, so let's kind of do some of the boring or more boring review stuff. Let's test if you guys kind of understand the story, understand literary analysis, and then we can do our activity. Okay? So, right, we have three styles when writing a literary analysis. Right here. Right? The first one is chronological. What does that mean? I'm sure you guys know.
Time order.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so smart.
You're so smart. What does this mean? What does chrono mean?
Time.
Right. What language is it from?
I don't know. Latin.
Greek.
Yeah, one of the two.
That's pretty similar. Who was Chronos? Bonus information.
Chronos.
Yeah.
Titan, not God. Titan, before the gods. Right? Why was he crazy? What was weird about him? He ate his babies. That's weird, right? Zeus and the other babies were like, yo, I want to be a god. I don't want to be eaten. And so they, anyway, bonus information.
Yo.
Second one. Order of importance. What is, it's kind of obvious, right? Give me an example.
We order.
Is it always most important to least important?
No. Sometimes we least to more.
Right. So it's organizing things by most important to least important, or least important to most important, right? For effect, right? To kind of either build your argument or to start with a strong idea to convince them. And the last one, compare and contrast. That's even more obvious, right? You're kind of comparing or contrasting two different ideas. Okay? So next, right, the important thing with literary analysis is understanding the setting. Right? You have narrow and wide, right? Small and kind of big, or more general. So, what was the place of this story? Narrow. apartment and this town, right? Her apartment, that's where most of the story happens. And what's the wide place?
Town.
Yeah. What kind of, like a winter town, right? It's a cold season, right? Winter town. Yes, New York is a winter town. You're not very good at singing.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, you're the only guy in here. I feel like I can sing.
Go on, sir. Professor cut his point off.
Don't listen. Alright, time. What's the time? Roughly. Winter. Yeah.
Nighttime?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
Some
Winter. And if you had to guess kind of the wider time, when do you think this is taking place?
No.
Yeah, 1900s. Early 1900s, right? Because a movie was only, what, 25 cents? A movie is now like $13 in America. So it's definitely a long time ago. Right? Maybe early 1900s. How about environment? What's the narrow environment? This is more about emotion. Right? The narrow environment is more about, yeah, absolutely, lonely. What's another good word for lonely?
Lonesome.
Too easy. She's isolated, right? She's isolated. What about the wide setting, wide environment? The wide environment. It's a town during winter, right? Cold winter
Christmas.
town. Yeah, you could say, yeah, hi. Christmas.
And be smart again.
Yeah, there you go. Right, maybe on the East Coast or the Midwest. Yeah, no, that's, no.
No. Smoke.
Spock, yeah. Now you're mixing gangsters and Spock. You're confused. Alright, let's talk about characters a little bit now. How about the characters of this story? What's the difference between round and flat characters?
I want to answer. Round is like.
I want to answer. Okay, I want to
Round
listen.
are like develop. Who would have like development over the time, but flat is like same.
Yeah, exactly. A character that's round develops, changes, grows, and flat is the opposite, right? Nothing happens. Doesn't develop, doesn't change. I know this is kind of easy, guys, but this is like a simpler version than reading through the book pages, right? You should kind of try to do this every time you read a story. Maybe you won't write it down, but think about it like this. It'll help you kind of break it down, analyze it, right? It doesn't change or grow. Then we have types of characters, right? This is going to be also, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows, right? Protagonist.
Good guy.
Yeah, hero or the main character, right? Hero, main character. Antagonist?
Bad guy.
Yeah, bad guy, villain. So in this story, who do you think is the protagonist and who do you think is the antagonist?
Miriam is the protagonist and antagonist is Miriam.
Yeah, clever. Clever answer. Okay, and then secondary characters, these are like supporting casts, right? Supporting actors. There's not a lot in this story. Really, there's only at the end, there's kind of like the the couple, right? When she goes and she's like, I'm crazy, there's this little girl. And they're like, yeah, you are crazy. Right? So those are like supporting characters. They're kind of flat because nothing happens. They're just there. They participate, but there's no real growth. There's no real effect. Right? So the couple at the end. Right? These are supporting cast. And then extras. The extras are not really something in writing. You kind of know there's more people, but in movies, it's a little easier to understand extras, right? All the extra people, when there's a bomb explosion and all these people are running, like they're not real actors. You don't ever meet them. They're just extra bodies. So, what's after characters, right? We start talking about plot. Exactly. So, plot, pretty easy, right? What are the three parts of a plot? Middle and end. Right? It's pretty tough, right? Plot. Beginning, middle, end. So, what, in your opinion, what's like the real beginning? What's the first important thing in this story?
When she met Miller. Let's call her Miller.
That's called, yeah, that's no, right? There's Miller and there's Miriam. Mrs. Miller and Miriam. That's exactly what I wrote in my notes. Because how do you keep track? M1, M2? It's kind of weird. But Miller sounds like a 61-year-old woman, right? Miller sounds a little more formal, a little older. Okay. So, what is the beginning, right? Miller meets Miriam. Where? Good. At the theater. At the box office. Good. And what do you think is kind of the middle?
When Miriam ruined Miller's life.
Okay. All right, right? She comes over. She comes into the house. She's like, hey, I'm hungry. Feed me. And Miss Miller's like, Alewa? Who is this little girl? What is going on? Why is she here at 11 p.m.? Right? And then she goes out shopping. The middle is the big part. Right? There's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle. And then, what do you think is the end?
Turns out Miller is crazy.
Yeah. Right? The redheaded guy, just like me, redhead, right? He goes upstairs, he comes back down, and he's like, there's nothing there. There's no person, there's no box, right? The box of clothes, there's no dolls, there's no nothing. It's empty. And then you could even say, like the very, very end, what happens? What happens in the very, very end? Right? Because the end is like the outcome, the resolution. When they find no one in the apartment, that's not exactly the end. That's like right before the end. What's like the real end? Where you go like, okay, yeah, this is crazy.
When she started to spy.
Right. She goes back up to the room. There's nothing there. She goes, oh, I'm okay. I'm confident. I'm me. Then she kind of takes a nap, and she wakes up, hello. And she's like, oh, I'm crazy. Right? I'm 100% crazy now. Right? So that would be the beginning. That's the real end. Right? The end is not just leading up to, but the resolution. Right? The outcome. And the outcome is komba. Okay, then we have a little bit about the language. Right? We actually have a little bit of point of view. What is the point of view of this story? What's the point of view of this story? First, let's review what are the points of view.
First, second, third.
Right. First, second, third. Which one is not very common? Which one's a little weird? Second. Because second is like you are, right? When the author talks to you directly. It's unusual, not common. It happens sometimes, not common. And then what about first? Yeah, the writer is also the character, right? I. I went out. I saw Miriam. Is the story like that? No. It's third person, right? Where the narrator, the author, kind of knows everything, right? They comment on Miriam. They comment how Miriam feels. They comment on how Miss Miller feels. They comment on the environment. Not just what Miss Miller sees, but they kind of talk about everything, right? They use this fancy word. I think I spelled it correctly. Omniscient, right? Omniscient means know everything. Omni means everything, right?
Omnitrix nha. Omnitrix in Ben 10 nha.
Then we have kind of the harder stuff. We have like metaphor, simile, imagery, and probably the hardest one, allusion. What's metaphor? Can anyone explain metaphor?
Đấy quả đòn biệt. Yeah? Compare.
Like burning with desire. It's not actually I don't know. What?
The man was burning with desire.
Yes.
Does that mean the man is actually
No.
on fire? Right. It's
A trope where one
right. It's kind of comparing two things. It's comparing a man and it's comparing something that's burning
Yeah.
for effect to make you feel something. And then what is simile? It's with yeah. It's a comparison just like metaphor, but with like or as. Okay, which one is weaker? Which one is stronger? Yeah, simile is weaker. Because when you say like, you think about kind of two different things, right? When you say the pitcher, right, baseball, pitcher, was like Zeus throwing lightning bolts, right? You think like, wow, you see like Zeus up there throwing baseballs. But if you say the pitcher was like Zeus, it's not as powerful. You still kind of maybe think about the person compared to Zeus instead of just Zeus. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
When you say like or when you say as, it gets a little weaker. It's not as powerful an image. It's not worse, it's just different. Right? Sometimes writers in literature, they use metaphor, sometimes they use simile. How about imagery? What's imagery? Imagery. Can you not read my handwriting? Sorry.
No.
Describe like you can see the picture of something.
Right. Okay. And what is kind of the imagery of this story? Typically, what is the imagery? Yeah. Cold, dark, snowy. Right? It's not that friendly. It's not that open. Right? There's one time the imagery changes. Yeah, the day she goes out shopping. So sometimes they use imagery to keep repeating the same feeling, and sometimes they use imagery to show like an obvious difference. Right? When it's snowy, cold, dark, and then it's sunny, and it's a nice day. Right? They say an out of season day, meaning like it's a day from a different season. It's like a summer day during winter, right? It makes you feel like, oh, different, right? The imagery has changed. And then finally, the